Okay, good morning, everyone, and a happy Erev Purim. Right? Tonight is Purim, very exciting. Right? Today is the Fast of Esther. Traditionally, it's a custom and brought down in the Code of Jewish Law, a custom to fast today in commemoration of the fast that Esther asked the Jewish people to fast in the Megillah, right? So smack in the middle of the Megillah, not smack in the middle, closer to the end part, and when there was a whole back and forth with Esther and Mordecai regarding if she should go to Achashverosh. She said he hasn't called me in a little while. And back then things were slightly different. If she just walked in unannounced, he might just chop off her head. Right, that was a pretty big deal. It's not like some small thing. A head's getting chopped off. But Mordecai told her, this could be the reason why you were put into this position. Right, so he said, okay, I hear that. Right, good point. So she said, but please, gather all the people, the Jewish people, and ask them to fast for 3 days. And then, I will go in. I'll go in on the third day, and we don't fast for 3 days, right? But to commemorate that fast, we fast on Erev Purim, the eve of Purim. Also, the eve of Purim was the day that the war happened. Right? Let's not forget. If you remember, Purim is the day that they rested. Right? Today is actually the day that the war happened, the day that they defended themselves, where they went out to war. The 13th, right, is when they went out to war. Okay, so in Shushan Abira, in the capital, they went out again also on the 14th, right? And that's why they do Purim on the 15th, because they rested on the 15th. So a practical example in our days where we know that we have a city that for sure was walled from the time of Joshua, it's a long time ago, right? Over 3,000 years ago, right? Is Jerusalem. We know Jerusalem was walled, right? 3,000. Now it's not the same walls, right? These walls were built by the Turkish Sultan, right? But the city had walls, right, from the times of Joshua, even though they were destroyed and rebuilt, but that is considered a city from the times of Joshua, and therefore they follow like the city of Shushan itself, and they do on the 15th. I don't want to get sidetracked on those laws. That's not today's discussion, an interesting discussion, passage in the Talmud, right? But the point I'm trying to bring out is that before we get even to Purim, which is really all part of Purim, right, is that today, right, is the 13th of Adar, is the day that the Jewish people went out to war. Right? This is the day that they went out to war. This is the day that they defend themselves. This is the day that God made the miracle, right, that they won the war. Now, it wasn't as great as the miracle of winning the war like it was at Hanukkah, because they did have the support of the kingdom, and that's why we don't celebrate the war itself. Right, and it is mentioned that we won the war, but it's not like Hanukkah. Right, in Purim, the whole story itself, the whole timeline, right, is the miracle within itself. So today is the Fast of Esther. It's customary to fast to commemorate that fast. It's an interesting tidbit for those that are like tidbits. The Purim story, the Fast of Esther, actually happened when? Anybody know? When was the actual Fast of Esther? Anybody?
Wasn't it Pesach?
Very good, Emily. Right, thank you. Right, the Fast of Esther actually was, right, during Pesach. The 3 days, right, the third day, right, was the second day of Pesach. Right? And on the second day of Pesach, we actually have we add in and one of the ends, and Nirtza, all the way at the end. So I guess it depends on your Seder, but like in the Feigenbaum family is usually around 2 a.m., right? We add in 1:30, 2, right? Depends. This year will be later because it's after the change of clocks. Everything's later anyways, right? We add in on the second night. We mention about Haman and about the destruction of Haman, right? But again, that was just an interesting tidbit just to know a little bit about the timeline. Okay, so as I mentioned today, I want to talk about the name of Purim. What does Purim mean? It's an interesting word. It's a Persian word, right? It's not a Hebrew word. It's not a word from the Torah, right? What does that word mean? What does Purim mean? Anybody?
That lots.
Okay, very good, Sherry. All right, thank you, Sherry. Right, so Purim means a lottery, right? A lot, right? So as it says in the Megillah, it says, right, he billed poor, right? He did a lottery, right? And then it says, I'll shame poor, right? They called it Purim. It says clearly in the Megillah, right? Why was it called Purim? I'll shame poor because of the lottery that Haman did. So now what did Haman do? All right, let's get a little background. All right, what did Haman do? So Haman, right, he went ahead and he created a lottery because he said, I don't know when to wipe out the Jews, right? Look, there's 12 months out of the year to wipe out the Jews, right? So well, when should I do this? Right? I could do it anytime. So you know what he did? He went ahead and he says, okay, I'm gonna do a lottery. Let's see what the lottery has to say, right? Whenever the lottery says, that's what we're gonna do. So the story goes, right? It says that he picked the lottery. The Midrash elaborates on it that it first came out 1 month. He said, oh, no, that's not a good month. The Jewish people got saved that month, right? But whatever, right? But in the Megillah, it says that he pilled them, and it came out in the month of Adar. And the Midrash says, oh, great, month of Adar is a great month. You know why the month of Adar is a great month? Because that's when Moshe Rabbeinu passed away. Right, so it's a bad month for the Jewish people. Look, Moses, their leader, right, passed away on this month, so therefore it must be a bad day. Little did he know, or maybe he did know, and he didn't care. He felt that wasn't worthy information. But Moshe Rabbeinu was also born in Adar, right? So Moshe Rabbeinu passed away and was born in Adar. Right? Let's say he knew that and he felt that wasn't important, right? So the question is, right? So he picked Adar because it was a bad month. But that's what came out in the lottery. And therefore, since Haman picked the month to kill the Jewish people, right, and Adar, right? So therefore, we call the holiday in the name of Haman's lottery, right? Purim. Guys, we can't get any more inspirational name out of Purim. Like, come on, let's think of the other names of our holidays. Okay, let's just go through Pesach, right? And it's not a trivia question, but it is, right? Why do we call Pesach Pesach? What's the name of Pesach? Anybody know? Let's make this a little more interactive, guys. Let's go.
Because they're passing over. I don't know.
Okay, right? Because it says because Hashem passed over the homes of the Jewish people, right? Pass over the bread, right? And right, but because Hashem jumped over, he skipped the homes of the Jewish people and the last plague, which was a miracle. So that's inspirational, right? We pass over Pesach es bateim, right? He passed over the houses, right? So that's part of the miracle, and we're being grateful. And that's the name, realizing that God's always looking out for us, right? Shavuos has to do with weeks, but we spoke about it. It's more than weeks. It represents the weeks that count to receiving the Torah and representing the concept that the concept of the 7 days are governed by the Torah, right? Also, it means to rest, right? Shavua also means to rest. It's a time to rest within the embrace of God with the Torah, right? Then we got Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year. I mean, that makes pretty much sense, right? Yom Kippurim, right? The days of atonement. And then we got Sukkot, represents the Sukkot that they sat in the desert. If it's the clouds of glory or the actual huts, but the miracle of the Jewish people being able to survive in terrains like that. Hanukkah, right? Two different names, either because they rested on the 25th of Hanukkah. That's what the Talmud says, right? After the war, right? So reminding us of the war, the date that they rested, right? Or it has to do with Chanukah Sabais, the rededication of the temple. That's a glorious thing, right? So the names always have it's like a positive thing, right? Comes Purim, I'll take you in 1 second, Emily, right? Comes Purim, right? And Purim comes and says, because of Haman's lottery, yay! Well, where's the inspiration in that? I mean, that sounds pretty lame, right? Couldn't think of anything else. Like sometimes I'm thinking of titles for classes or things like that. I'm like thinking, okay, I want some exciting title, right? So sometimes it has to do with the class. Sometimes it's exciting. Right, over here, it's not exciting. Okay, Haman's lottery. And it's not. What does it have to do with the miracle? Like, what's going on over here? Why? And it states in the Megillah. It's not like it was something that was adopted by the Jewish people over time. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, Haman's okay, let's just call it Purim. It's actually stated in the Megillah, right? The Megillah decided Mordechai and Esther would wrote the Megillah, and Megillah is not just some book, right? The Megillah is considered one of our 24 holy books. It's Torah Shabbat. It's part of the written Torah, right? And in there was written, you know why? Al Shem Pur, because of the lottery. So they called it that. And they decided to inscribe it in the Megillah. What's going on here, Emily?
I just wanted to go back to the holidays you were listing. So when you said Yom Kippur, in that context, it means what?
So it literally Kippur. Okay, so you bring out a good point. Thank you. Right, and you're bringing out another question that we're going to ask later. Right, the Yom Kippur literally is referred to as a slicha, a day of slicha. So in the Torah, right, it says Yom Slicha. It's called a day of forgiveness. Right, that's what it's written in the Torah. Right, we call it Yom Kippur. Right, Kippur is literally means to say like an atonement, right? But right, you're bringing out the Zohar HaKadosh brings out, and this is sort of leading to the next question, right? Is that the Yom Kippur, right? Really, if you break the word down, it's ki. Right? We read it together, Kippur, right? So it's one word. But if you put a comma and you say ki usually ki refers to like. Right, in the biblical language, Hebrew, ki means like. So ki, and then what are you left with? Poor, right? Ki, poor, right? So poor, if you look at it as a concept of, like we're saying, Purim, right? So ki, poor, like Purim, right? And the Zohar HaKadosh says, says that that the Purim, one could attain a higher level of spirituality on Purim than he could on Yom Kippur, because look at the name of Yom Kippur is Kippur. It's like Pur. It's like Purim, right? That's a play on words, right? It's a play on words, right? But it's like Pur. It's like Purim, right? So it means to say that one could attain a higher level on Purim than on Yom Kippur, right? So the obvious question, of course, which is question number 2, right? And you guys can feel free to answer any one of those, right? If you want, right? The question number 2 is what the heck's going on here? Right? What? Yom Kippur? We're fasting. We're angels. We're in synagogue all day. Right? We're refraining from the materialistic world. We're removing ourselves from the materialistic world. Right? We spoke about Yom Kippur. Why don't we wear leather shoes and other materialistic pleasures? We remove ourselves. We're like angel-like. Right? We're able to say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchusol Olam V'Ed. Right? After we say Shema Yisrael out loud, even though the whole year we say it quietly. We reach such high levels. That is like Purim, where we're like, and drinking and the clown face, right? And okay, I hope you guys were okay with the flyer, and I just decided to change it a little bit, right? Make it a little more fun, right? I didn't have too much time to like get rid of all the words, so I just put it on top, but that's all part of the fun, right? Right? But you know, but that one could have taken, okay, Purim's a great holiday. It's a miracle. We're celebrating. Okay, we could get lofty level, maybe, yeah, but greater than Yom Kippur? And again, how do we, it's like poor, like the poor, right? Like the name of the holiday. What's going on over here? What's the name of the holiday, right? And again, this is, in Judaism, we make a big deal out of every small little thing, right? In Judaism, everything makes a difference. And the name of the holiday represents what's going on over here, right? We have to understand what is going on over here. Why is the name named after a lottery, right? And it's not just something that came about over time. It's written in the Megillah, right? You can't say, well, maybe it has a different meaning. No, the Megillah says why they called it that way, right? No questions. Right? It says clearly, I'll shame poor because of the lottery. And then now part 2 of the question is, what's Yom Kippur? One can attain less of a level on Yom Kippur than on Purim? And we have to name the name according to the Zohar, like after the name of Purim? Right? What's going on over here? Any thoughts?
Does it have to do with maybe facing death? I mean, you have like a decision, you know, that the ark is closing, you know, you're facing that. Other thing is a chance and an Amalek being able to wipe out your people, maybe. kind of.
So that's true. We're definitely facing death, but we faced death before, right? The Hanukkah, okay, if Hanukkah, if you could have just assimilated and not faced death if you wanted. That's true, right? But we faced death before, right? But that definitely is a something to reflect on. What could have been inspiring the Jewish people to change. Right, but there has to be something a little more than that. Right, there has to be something a little more going on over here. Any other thoughts? Go ahead, Suzette. Go ahead.
No,
I'll
go ahead.
try. So probably it has to do with, I'm just thinking here that, when we think of lots, we think of things by chance and, randomness or probability. But, maybe when it was written by the rabbis, we were seeing it as chance, but in there is the story that Hashem has a plan and is probably behind everything. So my thought is also that it was given a name as well that is not, maybe reminds us over time that even in the wider world, or even when the Jews were in exile, or Jewish people in Galus, I think is what the term is, that God would still perform miracles for his people there.
Okay, very good. Well, we're going to take that direction in a couple minutes. You're on the right track. Excellent, Suzette. Emily, what did you want to say?
I think like similar to what Suzette was saying, just that like it represents the ultimate like show of it's all random, right? Like a lottery, it's like just by chance you win, and it's complete randomness. And the fact that God's hidden the Megillah kind of ties back that like it's not like God controls everything, even if it looks completely random. God is behind the scenes in everything, in like every aspect of life, which you see when you read the Megillah, how God is all of these coincidences that happen. God is controlling all of them. So you have like a whole Megillah without God's name in it. And really he's controlling the whole thing, which if you look at it, you see that. And so like what Suzette was saying, like the word like lottery is really like sounds on the surface, like it's just completely random.
Okay, excellent. You guys are, it's really, really great. You guys are on the right track. Let's expand on that, right? And let's try to dig deeper into the holiday of Purim through that idea, and let's expand on that. Before we get to that, I want to throw out another question. Right? We're Jews. We answer question with a question, and I want to throw out another question. And the question's like this: there's a very interesting midrash, right? I think it's from the Tikkun Zohar, right? Also from the writings of the Arizal on the Zohar, and he writes like this. He says that all the holidays, right, by the end of days, right, all the holidays will be nullified. Right? It's a different. We're not getting into a whole series, the end of days, right? I can just tell you based off what rabbis have written about it. What do I know, right? But there's a big. The Talmud speaks about it a little bit. What's going to be in the end of days, right? I don't want to get into that right now. But whatever it is, whatever the end of days are, right? The Tikkun Zohar says, right, that in the end of days, right, that all the holidays will be nullified, except for Purim. So no Pesach, right? You don't have to stay up till 2 a.m., right? You don't have to eat the lettuce till 12 until you're actually able to eat real food, right? Sukkahs, right? You don't have to go ahead and build your sukkah, right? You don't have to, stay up all night on Shavuos, right? Learning, right? Whatever it is, right? All the holidays will be nullified, except for Purim. So the obvious question is, what the heck is going on here, right? Purim is a rabbinic holiday, not taking away from it, but it's a rabbinic holiday. Right? It's a holiday where one would say probably it's like the most materialistic holiday, right? We drink, right? We eat, right? Drink only if you're able to drink responsibly, right? We eat festive food, right? We dress up. Right, we have a great time. We dance. Right, we go out and give presents. Right, it's a festive holiday. We're allowed to drive. Right, we're allowed to talk on our phones. We're allowed to play music. We're allowed to use microphones. It's a materialistic holiday, in the sense of it. That's the holiday that's going to survive in the world to come, which is spirituality. Pesach, we became a nation. Isn't that important? It's worse. We're learning all day. The Torah, it's allowed us to connect to the concept of after days. Sukkot, if let's say you say the clouds of glory representing the concept of spirituality. Hanukkah was a miracle. That was all, it was an open miracle, right? It was an open miracle of oil lasting for who knows how long. Right? Purim, that's the holiday that we're gonna say, right? That's gonna last forever. What's going on here? Give me 1 second, guys. Okay, so as we were saying, the back to the question, right? Let's just recap the question. The question is, what's going on over here, right? The Purim, the holiday that seemingly is the most materialistic kind of holiday, right? The holiday where we're drinking and we're getting dressed up and we're festive, and it's a great holiday, right? An important holiday, but that's the only holiday that's going to survive the world to come. What's going on? So the commentaries explain that what is really going on in the holiday of Purim, and this is where we have to get to the depth of the holiday of Purim. The holiday of Purim, there's a concept that we know in the holiday of Purim called Eis Ratzon, a time of Ratzon, a time of connection with God that is on one level and more spiritual than any other time during the year. It is in the mystical world, and it's on this. There's a concept of if I remember correctly, I think it's 7 days out of the year, or maybe it's 5 days out of the year, where there's the greatest idea of davening, praying with the sunrise. Right, one of those days is Purim. Another day is Yom Kippur. Another day is Hoshana Rabbah. Right, another day is the 7th day of Pesach, and I don't want to get into those. Right, but Purim, it is known as a time of one could connect to spirituality on the deepest level. How? And how? What's going on here? So to answer these questions, right, we have to understand, and we talked about this idea a couple other times, that it's really the theme of who we are, and we're bringing it out through Purim, right, and to really understand Purim. What is our purpose in this world? Our purpose in this world, right, is not to have kakash cake and matzah balls all day, right? But our purpose in this world is, right, to transform. I just lost my shoulders. Right, to transform, right, our physical part of us into a spiritual beacon. That's the purpose. That's the purpose of this world. And the purpose is to allow our neshama, our soul, to really be the one in control. That's the purpose. That's a purpose. That's our purpose. And the concept of free will, concept of overcoming our challenges, and to really transcend, right, the materialistic world, but not to be hiding in a monastery, not to be an angel like on Yom Kippur. Yeah, not like Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is a once a year sort of recharging our batteries, but we don't have Yom Kippur all year round. Right? Yom Kippur is not meant to be the whole year. That we can't sustain that, and that's not our purpose. Our purpose is not to refrain from the materialistic world all year round. Once a year, right, we sort of are able to be angel-like, right, and we're able to recharge our neshama and sort of give it a boost, and then we could get into the world. But that's not the epitome, because man is greater than angels. Right? Man is considered anashim halchim. Men are walkers, and angels omdim. Angels stand. What do you mean angels stand? The Talmud talks about how different angels, how many steps it takes them to cross the world. Right? Whatever that means, material, spiritual concept. Right? But man is. What does it mean? Angels are stationary, and man is walkers. And the commentaries explain because angels can now transform themselves, become something higher than what they are. Angels are stuck. God put them on a certain level of spirituality, and that's how they are. Can't change. On the contrary, man, right, are walkers. We could constantly move. Unfortunately, we can move backwards, right? But we're movers. We're able to change ourselves. We're able to grow. Now, how are we able to do that? Not when we're in the state of spirituality. And when we're in a state of, angel-like, right? When we're like in a state of being like angels, right? Of all spiritual and refrain from the materialistic world, we can grow because that's being angel-like. That's why we can't be Yom Kippur all year round. And that's not the epitome. Epitome is not Yom Kippur, believe it or not, right? Yom Kippur is the holiest day of the year because we could be like angels, and the day is the holiest, so we could connect to our neshama on the highest level, but that's not where we grow. That's not where we grow. Right? We grow on a day like the total opposite, a day like Purim. What does Purim represent? Purim and Yom Kippur are really polar opposites. We said Yom Kippur is like Purim, means to say the ability to grow in our spirituality, but really, Purim and Yom Kippur are polar opposites. Right? Yom Kippur is a day where we refrain from the materialistic world. We're like angels. And Purim is when we engage in the materialistic world on the highest level, more than Pesach, more than Sukkot, more than Hanukkah. But Purim is the day when we engage in the materialistic world. We have festive meals, we wear costumes, we are joyous. But the job of Yom Kippur is to realize that really behind the materialistic world is spirituality. Because the materialistic world is just a mirage. The materialistic world is sort of just that puppet where there's someone maneuvering the puppet and moving things around. That's the avoda, the work of Purim. The work of Purim is on the highest level of being involved in our materialistic world, that we recognize that the materialistic world is just food, is an avenue of being able to feed our spirituality. Because if we're able to connect to it properly, if we're able to understand it properly, we're able to grow. And the more we realize it, the greater we could grow. The greater we could grow. Because the more materialism we have, right? The more involved in materialism, and we transform that into spirituality, the higher we could grow. Right? And therefore, says a commentary, let's start answering the questions, and then we'll take questions and answers. It could be on this topic or anything else around Purim. Right? Therefore, says the commentaries, let's work the last question, and we'll work that way. All right? Why is Purim the holiday that's going to sustain and be around in the end of days? I'd say the commentaries, because that's real. Purim is really the way that we're supposed to be living, and not getting too much in the end of days, but it goes with the statement of Shmuel and the Talmud that says, in the end of days, there won't be any difference except for Sheba and Malchus, except for the yoke of the nations of the world. Right? We're still gonna go to work, and we're still gonna do whatever we do, but we won't have the evil inclination telling us not to do things that are bad, and the yokes of the world. We don't have the challenge, but we'll still be living our lives. So that concept, Purim, means to say we're going to be living our life. We're going to go to, but everything's going to be connected to spirituality. When we eat, and when we sleep, and when we go to work, and when we exercise, right? And whatever we do, we're going to be doing it in a way that we're recognizing that this is all an avenue of elevating our soul, our neshama, and doing it with the realization that we're going to grow spiritually from materialistic world, because we're going to transform. We're going to change the materialistic world into something spiritual. And therefore, that's the epitome of the end of the day. So Purim, which represents that in our days, Purim, if you really think about it, is a little mimic of how the world to come is supposed to be. We're not going to be dressed up in the world to come, that much I can tell you. Right? But it is a way, right? It is a way of realizing that we take the materialistic world and we elevate it on the highest level. Question number 2, right? why can we attain a higher level of spirituality on Yom Purim than Yom Kippur? So we answered that. Because on Yom Kippur, we're like angel, we're stuck on the level that we're on. Right? Sort of metaphorically, of course, we could grow from Yom Kippur, not to take away from that. We could grow from Yom Kippur. But Yom Kippur represents the idea of only spirituality. And we could grow from that because we are still physical people, right? But that represents the concept of all spirituality, which is not really the way throughout the whole year. We can sustain that the whole year, and that's not what God wants from us all year, because then we can't grow. But Purim, as we said, is the polar opposite. It represents how we're supposed to try to attain the whole year. We can't be like that the whole year either, because if we are materialistic people, and we're just all year round, we're engaging in our materialism, right? To indulging in it, we won't be able to grow either. But Purim is the way that we're supposed to try to be all year round. That's the difference. And Yom Kippur and Purim are both days that we cannot be all year round, right? Because as we said, they're polar opposites. One is all spirituality. One is materialism, but elevating the materialism. And so Yom Kippur, we're not supposed to be like that all year round, right? And that's not the goal, because then we can't grow. Right? It's sort of recharging our batteries. We need that once a year, right? To realize what is possible, being like angel-like. But we're supposed to attain that through Purim, which we can't be all year round either, because then we won't be able to grow. We need sort of a balance, because that's our free will, that's our challenges. Right? But on Purim, if we connect the Purim properly, we don't have parties that are inappropriate. And unfortunately, people have taken Purim, because the greater the opportunity, the greater the failure too. Right? God created the world in an evil balance. The greater our opportunity of growing spiritually, the greater the inclination tries to make it a day of inappropriate, right? Of a lack of spirituality. And therefore, unfortunately, there are a lot of parties that are not appropriate, like Suda Achashverosh, like the Suda, the Achashverosh's party. That's how the Purim story starts. The Jewish people originally went to Purim Achashverosh's party, and what had the best kosher symbols on there. Right? They had wine that was mevushal and the best slot. They had everything, right? They had all the kosher brands, right, that you could find in Publix and Winn-Dixie. Right, and then even the ones that you could find, and all the ones from Borough Park and then Miami and all the big cities, and everything was there. But it was only the materialistic part of it. There wasn't the spiritual part of it, because it was Achashverosh's party. That by the end of the Purim story, right, the Jewish people realized that you could have Esther in the palace, you could have Mordecai second in command, but that is being done in a spiritual way, in a relationship with God, and not engaging in the materialistic world, not being involved in the materialistic world, not making the materialistic world kosher, right? But elevating the materialistic world to ability to spiritualize yourself and to grow from it, right? And that, right, is why Purim is the epitome of how we're supposed to be throughout the year. But we can't attain that either. Can't be like that all year round. The end of days will be able to be like that. And that's why it'll be around the end of days. That's what it means, it'll be around the end of days, because the whole will be like Purim, not dressed up. The idea of Purim will be around the end of days, because that's really the epitome, being able to elevate every aspect of our materialistic life, right? When we do exercise, when we eat, and when we dress, and everything that we do will be done in a way of growing and becoming closer to God. And how do we do all that? By the name of Purim, like both Suzette and Emily were saying. And we do all that by realizing, right, that what is Purim? A lottery. And so I can't say I'm sure, but I'm sure some of you probably buy lotteries every once in a while. I know I do every once in a while, right? I haven't really won yet. I think the biggest one, I think I won $50 once, right? I always tell the kids whenever they want something, they said, okay, when I win the lottery, right? So I think I won $50. So one of the kids said, "I knew you won the lottery." I said, I wasn't talking about $50 lottery. I was talking about like a couple $1 million lottery. Then we'll be able to do whatever you guys want. Right? Okay. All right. So one day, right? Maybe not. Right. But right. What is a lottery? As you guys were saying, a lottery is really, if you look at a lottery without God, it's the most materialistic concept in the world. It is all chance. It's all by chance. There's no spirituality to it. There's no our effort. When I go to work, so I did something to it. I worked hard and I got money. So it's me, right? It's also materialistic, but it's me, right? A lottery, right, is all chance. It's all chance. You're leaving it to, there's no God, there's no nothing. It's just all random. And you've heard the word random. Random is a word that's used, it's random. Nature, not random. Right? Luck of the draw. Or you can realize that a lottery is actually the greatest realization that God is in control. It's not random. You're taking yourself out of the equation. When we go ahead and we go to work, right, and we went to school and we do whatever we do, if it's in banking, if it's in nursing, and if it's in being a lawyer, if it's being a plumber, it's being an air conditioning person, it's being a tutor, it's being IT, whatever it is you do, even being a rabbi, right? Whatever it is you do, right? We believe that God provides for us, but we still like, hey, I put time into this. I work hard on this, right? It's partly me. That's why we have the concept of tzedakah, to make us remember that the money we have, it's from God, 10%, right? That it's like an allowance we get from God. And if someone gives me an allowance and he says, hey, you have to give a certain amount away, of course we will, right? That's the idea of tzedakah, is to constantly remind ourselves, right? And other concepts. But when we do things, right, we sort of feel like we're in control a little bit. A lottery, right, it could be either the greatest concept of chance, no God, no nothing, it's randomness, or the polar opposite again, the opposite, completely the opposite way. It's totally God, totally out of my control. It's totally God. So why did this person win and that person didn't? That's what God's decision was. Right? Why didn't I win the $500 billion lottery a little while ago? I would have supported all the Torah institutions, right? And would have stopped poverty. We all say, right, until we have the money, right? But right, it was God's choice. That wasn't part of the decree for me. I wasn't part of it, but I go ahead and buy every once in a while because I don't know. Maybe if God wants, if I buy once in a while, I buy one ticket. I don't buy 20 tickets or 30 tickets or things like that. I buy every once in a while. I'm not ashamed to say, right? Because I say, hey, I have to do my shot. Let's have to do my effort. If I don't buy a lottery ticket, right, God can't make it that I win. But I believe that God's in control. That's totally random. It's nothing that I can do about it. Right? I can't go ahead and give a better class. I can't go ahead and invest in the right. Say I'm investing in the right one. I did the research, right? It's totally in God's hands. So lottery can be either something that we say just random chance and there's no God, or on the contrary, a lottery is something that we recognize that it's totally God. And therefore, when God told Moses in dividing the land of Israel, how did they divide the land of Israel for the tribes? With a lottery, right? Wow. Oh, Judah got this part. Oh, it's not fair. Randomness. No, it's a lottery. It means to say Moshe had nothing to do with it. God didn't want the tribes to say, oh, Moshe has favoritism to Judah, or he had favoritism to Ephraim, or to Shimon and to Reuven, and therefore he gave him this, he gave the mountain, right? God said, no. We can't have any of that. Dividing up the land cannot be a decision, even if it's coming from me. Right? God told me this. Yeah, not this time, Moshe. Right? Not when you're playing around with which property I get. And am I going to get Broadway? You haven't been play Monopoly, right? Am I going to get Broadway, or am I going to get like the one, I don't know, somewhere in South Carolina, right? That it's only gets like $50 every time someone lands on it. And what am I going to get? And really, come on. So God said, you're right. It's going to be a lottery. I'm going to pull it out of a hat, because then no one could question that it came straight from God. Because again, that's what a lottery could be talked about. And therefore, that goes now to the heart of the Purim story, right? Why was it called? And that's why the Megillah came and said, I want you guys to know why we're calling Purim. I'll say Purim for the lottery. Yes, because Haman looked at a lottery as just a chance, randomness. Right? He didn't believe in God. That's what a Amalek represents. We're not going to go into a whole class of Amalek, but Amalek represents randomness, chance, a serkar chabaderech, that they just happened to attack you on the way just by chance. No, whatever. No God. Didn't care about all the miracles that happened. Defied it. said, we don't believe in any of this. It just happened to be random winds and things like that that made the water split. I don't know. There was there's been, plagues before and things like that. It's randomness. They don't believe in God. And therefore, Haman made a lottery. He said, let's just leave this totally to chance, to nature, right? Make a lottery. And the Jewish people came and realized, no. On the contrary, right? On the contrary, it was God that orchestrated to be an Adar. Yes, because Moshe Rabbeinu passed away there. And Moshe Rabbeinu was born on the same day. And the commentaries explain that someone that dies and passes on the same day represents that they had a complete life. They were able to transform the materialistic world into something spiritual, which Moshe Rabbeinu represents. Since at the end of Moshe's life, L'kain, his eyes did not get weak, because Moshe Rabbeinu represents this idea that he transformed his materialistic life into a spiritual beacon, and he used all the materialistic world. He was a shepherd, right? He grew up in the Pharaoh's house, right? From one end of society to the other end of society. Every part of it, he recognized God in there. So Haman made the greatest mistake in the world. Moshe Rabbeinu passing away, we don't look at death as a bad thing. We look at death, right? If someone had a full life and he transformed his body, death is the opportunity now to live a spiritual life. So Moshe Rabbeinu passed away and he died on the same day, meaning to say that Moshe Rabbeinu represents the idea of what the Jewish people had to come and recognize about Purim. That we could go ahead and take the materialistic world and transform it and change our materialistic body into something spiritual. That the Midrash says that Moshe Rabbeinu's neshama, soul, did not want to leave its body. Because Moshe Rabbeinu's neshama told God, hey, what do I have here that I'm not going to have up there? He transformed his body into a spiritual beacon. Up in heaven, I can't do any more mitzvahs. I can't transform my materialism into spirituality anymore. What should I leave this body? And therefore, God gave him, as it's known in English, the kiss of death, right? In a positive way, right? God said, sorry, that's my decree. But that's what Moshe Rabbeinu represents. So his death is not a negative thing to the Jewish people. And so Haman totally couldn't comprehend that, because Haman represents, he looked at the poor as a total materialistic thing. So you look, death, that's it, we're done, right? There's no afterlife, there's no spirituality, right? Must be a bad time for the Jewish people. A random bad chance for the Jews. So that's what Haman represents. Therefore, he picked that day. He was so excited. But because he looked at the lottery as just randomness. But the Jewish people look at a lottery, right, as an act of God, as realizing that everything comes from God. Even when we put our hard effort in, whatever it is, we take the materialistic world and transform it. So therefore, Adar was the greatest month. Because that's when Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, but that's when he was born, and that represents the concept of being able to transform our body into a spiritual beacon. And that's what Jewish people had to come to realize, to be able to do to win the Purim story. And therefore, Esther told them, right, the only way to totally fight their involvement in the world, in the materialistic world, was to fast for 3 days, right? To remove themselves for a minute away from the materialistic world. And that's what we do on Purim. On Yom Kippur, we have to remove ourselves. But then, right? And then we go ahead and we fight. Then we go ahead and we celebrate, right? Because then we back to the middle of where we're supposed to be. And that's why Purim, we celebrate and we dress up and we eat and we have a festive meal. But we're supposed to do it in realization that this is how we could grow and recognize God's existence in every aspect of our lives. And that's why Purim is a time of a great relationship with God, if we connect to it. Because we're able to recognize God in every aspect of our lives, in our ties, in our work, wherever it is. So then it means to say, of course, we believe that God is everywhere, but we're truly connecting to this idea that God is everywhere. So if God's everywhere, hey, I'm just sitting right here. Okay, hey, God, help me out here. Right? He's right next to me. He's everywhere. It's not like, it's on a pedestal somewhere. It's everywhere. That's a deeper level, the concept of what Purim represents. That's what we're supposed to connect to, right, on Purim. We're supposed to have a great time. We're supposed to be festive. We have to realize that Purim is a spiritual holiday. Not like, God forbid, how some people, God forbid is the wrong word, but lahavdil, right? To separate from holy and not holiness. So people said, it's a Jewish Halloween. God forbid, no, it's not. It's nothing to do with that. Right? Just because we wear costumes, nothing to do with that. Once people should not compare it. Right? It's a spiritual time. We wear a costume because there's a reason behind it. We spoke about that in the last lunch and learn. Go ahead and look it up on my YouTube channel. Right? But it's a spiritual time. It's a time of spirituality. And I'm not going to go through all of it, but that explains all the different commandments that we have in Purim. But it's a time of connection. It's a time of realization what our true purpose in this world is. A time of really being able to connect and say, I could become more spiritual, right? And connect to God in the materialistic world. And that's the idea of the name of Purim. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And I'm going to turn off the recording, and then any questions.